So this commenter says, so in Mark, the New Testament, JC declared all things clean. Well, let's take a look at that. So I went to my King James looking for that phrase and it wasn't there. So then I just did a quick Google search and found this. It says the phrase, thus he declared all foods clean, does not appear in any of the original Greek or Aramaic text of the New Testament. And there's writing in front of this, so I can't read the rest of it, but it says that it was added to the modern translations in the 20th and 21st centuries. And it goes on to say the addition was added to clarify JC's statement about what goes into. So they added to the word. Can you see that here? And are we allowed to add to or take away from the word? Absolutely not. And as you can see here, it is definitely not in the King James Version. So it's not in the older translations. It just says simply, because it entered not into his heart, but into the belly, and goeth out in the drought, purging all meats. Then they didn't add it there. So in the newer translations, it is in parentheses right after this, and that's how you know that was added, because it's in parentheses. So now you have to ask yourself, did Yeshua change the Father's law about pork being unclean? So let's go to John 7:16 for that answer. Messiah answered them and said, my doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. So he only came with the Father's doctrine. His words that he brought were his Father's words. He didn't change anything. So what does the Father say about pork? Let's go look. The Father never leaves us to our own devices to try to figure out what is true and what is not true. So let's go to Leviticus 11:7. This is the doctrine of the one that sent Messiah. And the swine, though he divide the hoof and be cloven-footed, yet he cheweth not the cud, he is unclean to you. Of their flesh you shall not eat, and their carcass you shall not touch. They are unclean to you. And if anyone has not read Leviticus chapter 11, I would highly suggest that, because there is a whole list of what is clean and what is unclean, and you really need to know this. But I skipped to the very last two verses. And this is the law of the beast, and of the fowl, and of every living creature that moveth in the waters, and of every creature that creepeth upon the earth, to make a difference between the unclean and the clean, and between the beast that may be eaten and the beast that may not be eaten. Father's so good. He's so good. He gave us a list. What was unclean then is unclean now. Our Father changes not. It is only the apostate church that would try to tell you differently. They changed his word. They add to his word. They take away from his word. They tell you you can eat whatever you want, even though the Father makes it so clear what he didn't want us to eat. They tell you you don't have to keep the Sabbath, although the Father says it is a sign between us and him. 6 days may you work, and the seventh day is a day of rest. Let us throw out religion and go back to doing things the Father's way, because our Father knows best. And I almost forgot to point out what Mark chapter 7 is actually about. So let's look at it really quick. And you guys can go back and read chapter 7 for yourself, but basically this is it. And when they saw some of his disciples eat bread with defiled, that is to say with unwashed hands, they found fault. And it's because they were not holding to the tradition of the elders. So the Pharisees had added to the laws, and they had hand-washing rituals that they felt like had to be followed before you ate. And so when the Messiah's disciples were not following those, they got upset, and they said they're transgressing the tradition of the elders. And Messiah went on to tell them they were breaking, that the Pharisees were actually the ones breaking the laws of the Father. And he went on to call them hypocrites. And he said, howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men, because that's what the Pharisees were doing. They were teaching their traditions as if it were the doctrine of the Most High, which it is not. And he went on to tell them, for laying aside the commandments of the Most High, you hold to the traditions of men, as to the washing of pots and cups and many other such things like you do. And he told them that they full well reject the commandment of the Most High, that they may keep to their own tradition. It was their traditions, not the Father's. So, and as you continue on to read, you will see that he's saying that which cometh out of the man defileth the man. So, eating with unwashed hands does not defile the man. None of this was about eating clean and unclean animals. None of this was about this. This was all about eating with unwashed hands. That was the beginning. You always have to read things from the very beginning, read the whole chapter. We don't just cherry pick, even though that's what the church does today, but we can't do that if we want to get to the truth. So I hope that clears things up for you.